Hey guys, welcome back to Blind Strike Exotics. I'm John, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about insurance for your business, for your vast amounts of money that you've spent on your collection, growing it, breeding it, investing in equipment, and all this other stuff. If you've looked into it at all, it's basically impossible to actually physically buy business insurance that covers your actual animals. You can buy business insurance that covers your actual business itself, any legal costs, any damage to your building, to your equipment, but you cannot insure your actual snakes. And as any of you would know, that's the most expensive part of your collection. There's no way to insure the incubator and the eggs you have in there. There's no way to insure the thousands of dollars worth of hatchlings that you just hatched out that you've been feeding and trying to sell. There's no way to insure any of that. So there are 2 or 3 main things that I do personally to help ensure that I can keep these incubators running, to keep this room heated, and to make sure that in the case of power outages or emergencies or disasters, that I'm still able to maintain my collection in this room so that it still functions as the perfect habitat for these snakes. The first one is heating, keeping your snakes heated. For a lot of people in the southern half of the US, this isn't going to be a problem, but for everybody in the northern half of the states, especially that get cold winters like we do in Pittsburgh, where some nights it can be 0 degrees or below, and a lot of the time it doesn't go above 30 in the winter, it's having a way to keep everything in here heated in case of emergency, in case there's a power outage. And that is this whole room natural gas heater that I have here. Now this room, this snake room here, it's under my garage. You know, that's the front wall, the side wall of the house, the back wall of the house. This room is basically kind of very exposed to the elements. You know, we're like maybe halfway below ground on any one. Well, that's all the way below ground, but this is like partially, and as you can see, there's a window there, so we're kind of sloping downhill. So we're partially exposed to the elements here. This heater, not only does it keep this room up to temperature in the winter, and it does it very well, although my gas bill goes up to $300-400 a month in the winter because of this thing. It's also worked for me in an emergency, and usually in the summer we lose power at least once or twice because of bad storms. And last year I didn't have any backups for my incubator, so the power was out for a whole entire day, 24 hours, and we lost all the food in our fridges and freezers. But this room, although it was extremely hot, still functioned and worked, and the incubator kept incubating my eggs because I was able to pump this bad boy up, and it was so hot in here that I had to actually make this room 90 degrees to keep those eggs in that incubator incubating at the correct temperature, which at that point I think I had like maybe 8 to 10 clutches in there with no power. So obviously the temperature in there would have dropped down to probably 75 degrees for a whole entire day, which I would assume probably would have caused a decent amount of damage to those eggs. So this heater here has been a lifesaver. It does not run on any electricity. It is just gas. There's a pilot light, and it kind of works the same way a grill does. And you know, there's low just turns on the middle section, medium turns on 3, and high turns on 5. So there's not a whole lot of craziness going on with how you can, you know, I'm trying to look, there's no name on here. I don't remember what the name was, but you can buy it. They're not hard to find on I actually bought that off of Amazon, and it had a plumber come and, you know, run the natural gas line for it. So that helps keep this room up to temperature when there's a possibility that it's either too cold outside or that the electricity goes out and the racks aren't able to provide heat for the snakes anymore. Now, it's also nice because obviously there's some still cooler days in the spring where this room, like as of right now, there's no heater on, and this room basically sits at 80 degrees. That's the ambient temperature in this room in the summer. In the winter, in the spring, in the fall, it doesn't stay like that. So I even turn that heater on low, and it gets me the perfect temperature. So for keeping your room up to the proper temperatures, if you're relying on electric heat, you may want to invest in something and get a plumber to install a natural gas heater to be as a security backup for keeping the room warm. The next thing, which I started going really hard on this year, is battery backups. I know some of you have been talking about using like, let me see if I can uncover it here, because I have a bunch of junk on top of the incubator. Let's see, all my snake supplies. These little tiny battery backups here, like the APC battery backups that people would use for computers. Those are nice if you get temporary power outages where your power's gonna go out for a second or 10 seconds or 2 minutes. That would be okay for something like an incubator for a couple minutes, but they do not last very long because the batteries are not very big. So what I started investing in are these bigger batteries like this. This one is Anchor brand. I think this one has like 300 watt hours of power, and I really bought this one more for me and our devices for the house. You can plug it into the car to charge it. You can plug devices in that have a 300 watt pull maximum, or you can charge your phones and tablets in here. So this is perfect. We actually had a power outage last night for about 3 or 4 hours, and if we didn't know what was coming because we knew the storm was coming, we would have had some juice for our batteries. However, I started thinking about my incubator, with the issue I had last year where we lost power for a whole entire day, and it actually went out to Home Depot after that happened and actually bought a gas generator that I have outside to keep the freezers, because I could have $1,000 worth of frozen rodents in my freezer plus our food in the refrigerators going. But the incubator, if necessary, I also thought, it's probably not a bad idea to get a big battery for the incubator, because to be honest, that might have the most valuable items in my house at any given time, for this snake business. Because as of right now, I have this lightning pied clutch right here. There's 7 eggs in there. They are due to hatch in a week. So, if their temperatures dropped at this point for a little bit, it probably wouldn't make much of a difference to their health. But if this would have been a month ago, they could have killed the eggs, and that clutch of eggs, with what I've seen with lightning pieds, that clutch could be worth $20,000. And I didn't want to chance that because, there's a 30-minute storm that knocked the power out. So what I did is I bought one of these humongous EcoFlow batteries that has about 2,000 watt hours of battery time on it. I think this is I don't know if you can see this in here. It might be too dark, but it's the EcoFlow Max. And I think, this was very expensive. I think that battery cost me around $1,000, $1,200, and that was like a refurbished one from eBay. But what that does is this incubator is permanently plugged into that battery, and the electricity passes through from here to here, and it's always plugged into there. And it works just like the battery backup for a computer, where it's a pass-through for electricity. If something happens where the power goes out like yesterday, this will kick in, and there will be no power interruption, no surges to this incubator, and it just keeps running. So when the power went out last night, it went out for about 3 hours or so, this immediately kicked on and started running and kept this incubator powered up and ready to go. Now, so this is like the biggest sea serpents or hot box incubator they have. So there's obviously a lot of heat tape in there. With the smaller incubators, it'll probably run longer. But when this kicked on and I checked it, it said that I think it was like kind of like going up and down between 7 to 9 hours of battery life this was going to provide, which is a ton of time in my opinion, because that little battery, this one here, the battery backup might give you 5 to 10 minutes, because that only gives you 5 to 10 minutes on a computer. This gives you 7 to 9 hours, and this is a 2,000 watt hour battery. This little one here is 300 watt hours, so that might give you an hour on an incubator this big. But my kind of thing was to make sure that this thing never shuts down. And if something happens where I'm not home when the power goes out, you know, I get alerts that my power went out, this battery keeps this incubator running as long as it takes me to get the gas to run outside and to get the gas generator up and running to power everything in the house indefinitely. This right here, I think, is probably the most important insurance device that I own, because these eggs, if they're without power and they drop down to 75 degrees, or if there's eggs in here in the middle of the winter and this room turns into a popsicle, those things would be dead, and I could lose thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of hatchling ball pythons because this incubator shuts off. And this is all about insurance for your company, for your business, because nobody else provides it. If this power went out and everything in there went bad, nobody would insure that or give you money back for what you lost in that clutch, in those eggs. Neither would they for these animals. So you have all this money invested in it, you have these expensive racks, you have expensive snakes all over the place, you know, plus your little ratties and miceys over there. You need to have a way to protect yourself and protect them in case of disasters and emergencies. And having backup heating elements and having power battery or gas generator backups for your most important devices like your incubators are super, super important to make sure that you're not ruining your business. If you spent 5 years building your business up and you have spent tens of thousands or $100,000 getting to the point that you're at, and a huge freezing rainstorm comes through, blows out all the power lines, and you don't have power for a day or two in the middle of the winter while it's 30 degrees, and you don't have anything to protect yourself or your collection, you're basically out of business, and you probably will not build back up to where you were after you spent 5 years of doing it already. Don't put yourself in that position. Be prepared for things like this. Factor that into the money you're spending so that you're not getting caught with your pants down. Again, I just got lucky by having this here, because last year when the power went out for a day, I put no mind, paid no attention to what I was gonna do if the power went out, how I was gonna keep the eggs incubating, how I was gonna keep the snakes warm, paid no mind to it. I was thanking God, and I'm not a religious man, I was thanking God that I had this in here last year when the power went out, because it was out for over 24 hours. And I would have had a complete disaster in this room, and it's very possible that I could have lost a lot of the eggs in here too. So be prepared. If you're investing a ton of money and you have a lot of clutches coming out, be prepared for the worst. Protect yourself, insure yourself, so that you don't have to rely on an insurance company, which you're not going to get help from anyways. So be prepared. Get redundancy, get backups for heating, get backups for battery power, buy yourself a gas generator and keep it outside if you're able to do so, if you own a home as well, and just be prepared.